What's going on, Packer fans? Welcome into a game day edition of the Pack a Day podcast here on YouTube. It's what we've all been waiting for. Well, maybe not exactly. I think we're maybe waiting for a regular season football just a tad bit more, but still, Lambeau Field, Green Bay Packers, fans in the stands. Yes, it's just preseason, but Jordan Love makes his first start as quarterback of the Packers, and while the stakes aren't exactly high, there's still some buzz around this game. So I know I for one am definitely looking forward to this game. I know a lot of other Packer fans are as well. Still just preseason. There's going to be plenty of miscues and mistakes and underwhelming performances because that's just kind of the nature of preseason football. But again, I, for one, definitely still excited overall for not just this preseason game, but I think the preseason slate as a whole. I think all three games are going to be entertaining from a Packers standpoint because there's a lot of things to watch. And that's what I'm going to be going over today. I'm going to be going over the 10 things that I'm going to be watching this preseason and just kind of the storylines that I'm keeping an eye on. If you'd like a little bit more of a deeper dive into this, I did an article over on PackerReport.com, so you can check it out there as well. But let's jump in. Let's go over the 10 things that I'm most looking forward to for the Packers this upcoming preseason. Number one is no surprise. You know what it is already. That's, of course, Jordan Love's first true game snaps as a quarterback. And for most of you, this is probably your very first look at Jordan Love in a Packers uniform, right? He was inactive every game last season, number 3 quarterback. There was no preseason last year, no training camp last year. Some of you may have gotten to family night this year, to training camp this year to see a little bit of Jordan Love. But again, most of you probably have yet to see him in a Packers uniform. And even all of us, myself included, have never seen him in the green and gold or white or whatever that they're wearing on Saturday night, whatever uniform they're wearing. We haven't seen him besides in a red jersey, right? So this is still exciting, and this will be the story of the preseason, is going to be Jordan Love. Of course, first round pick a season ago, the likely heir apparent to Aaron Rodgers. A lot to play out, but this is probably the true last dance for Rodgers and the Packers. A million turns, I'm sure, still are going to take place in that saga, but no matter what, if you're the Green Bay Packers, you would love to see a strong performance from Jordan Love this entire preseason. As a fan, of course, you would love to see that as well. Maybe ease the concerns a little bit of a transition moving forward. But no matter what happens, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, this is going to be the major topic, is how Jordan Love, plays. He's going to get the vast majority of playing time in all 3 of these games. He will start. Aaron Rodgers is not going to play. Kurt Benkert will likely get some snaps in the fourth quarter. But this is Jordan Love's preseason. And just as it was in rookie mini camps and OTAs OTAs and mini camps without Aaron Rodgers, it was a huge opportunity for Love to get those snaps. It's going to be the same thing here. And it's not just how he plays, right? How does he command the huddle? Is he in charge of the offense? Is he able to check out of plays? Just all of that, right? It's not just the throws. It's not just it's everything encompassing. And nobody's expecting perfection at this point, right? And I can tell you right now, there's going to be some hiccups along the way, to say the least. I still think overall, from a progression standpoint, number 3 quarterback sort of lost a season ago. Number 2 quarterback this season, some flashes of brilliance, but a ton of inconsistency. I still think we're going to see that inconsistency. As long as he continues on a consistent growth pattern, that's a good thing. You want to see him get better from preseason game 1 to 2 to 3, and I think that's the biggest thing you're looking for right now. So temper expectations a bit, but there's no question about it. Number 1A is Jordan Love. And number 2 is most preseasons, right? It's your rookie class. This is your opportunity to finally unwrap the presents that Brian Gutekunst got you in April. And, whether it's an Eric Stokes, whether it's a Josh Myers, whether it's an Amari Rodgers, TJ Slayton, Kylan Hill, whoever it is that you're waiting to see from this class, you finally get to see them in game action to kind of start to put together an idea of what they may look like as a player. Now, again, this is the starting point, right? None of these guys are finished products, but it's still fun to just kind of finally see these players on tape to see what they're capable of doing in some capacity. And it goes a long way, too, in determining what type of role they're going to have when the regular season opens. I think it's fairly clear Josh Myers is going to be the starting center. I think Amari Rodgers, probably punt returner, going to have a gadget role on offense in some capacity. How much he gets could be predicated on how well he plays in the preseason. How much Eric Stokes plays very well could be predicated on how well he plays in the preseason. Guys like Isaiah McDuffie and Cole Van Lannon need very strong performances just to kind of break their position groups and make the 53-man roster coming out of camp. It's always easier when you're a draft pick, but nothing's guaranteed when you're a sixth, round pick. So still a ton to watch from this rookie class. And again, the number 2 thing that I'm going to be keeping an eye on as preseason kicks off. Number 3 is Joe Barry's defense. Now, let's be crystal clear here. We are not going to see the true Joe Barry defense. This is going to be a very watered down, vanilla version of Joe Barry's defense. I'm not necessarily looking at it from a scheme standpoint. I'm more looking at it as how do these players work together on the field? What's the communication like? Those sort of things. I've seen a ton of breakdowns already in camp where Packer wide receivers or running backs are running wide open, unchecked because there was a miscommunication or a breakdown in coverage. I want to see those things get cleaned up in preseason. So week 1 in New Orleans, you don't have a wide receiver, a tight end, or running back running down the field because somebody forgot to check them. There's new players in there, right? Devondre Campbell is going to be somebody in the middle of the defense that's going to be playing a new role. Eric Stokes could theoretically be playing a role for that defense. It still has to all gel together. And while the majority of the defense is players who were here a season ago, just like, again, a new scheme, new communication, a couple new players. And I think because of that, it all still has some wrinkles to get ironed out. So that's going to be what I'm mostly focusing on from a defensive standpoint. Number 4 is the running backs, and this is just pure, I can't wait to see these guys play in-game action. You've heard me talk about Patrick Taylor and Kylan Hill, how excited I am. Dexter Williams has had his best camp as a Packer as well. We're not going to see, much, if any, of Aaron Jones this preseason, especially with him being banged up right now. I don't think we're going to see a ton of A.J. Dillon. I think for the most part, they know what they have in A.J. Dillon, but I do think we're going to see a ton of Hill and Williams and Taylor, and I'm excited to see all 3 of those guys. More importantly, I'm excited to see what they do with that opportunity. I don't think they're going to go out and have Jordan Love throw 50 times a game. So I think there's going to be a lot of running the football. I think they want to get those offensive linemen in a little bit more of a rhythm. When you're not doing contact in training camp, you focus a lot of times more on passing the ball because there's more things you can get accomplished because running the ball just isn't really the same if you're not tackling, if there's not but I expect once the pads are on in preseason and there's a team across from you, I think Matt LaFleur is going to really work on a lot of his run concepts. And because of that, I think we're going to see a lot of Kylan Hill, a lot of Patrick Taylor, a lot of Dexter Williams, and I couldn't be more excited. All 3 have been really great in camp, and I want to see how that carries over. Next up is the wide receiver battle. And unfortunately, this, probable number 6 wide receiver battle between Devin Funchess, Equanimeous St. Brown, Juwan Winfrey, and Malik Taylor, at least in this first preseason game, may be non-existent because Funchess, EQ, and Winfrey are all hurt right now. So in this first preseason game, that gives Malik Taylor a heck of an opportunity to go out and prove himself. Remember, on the roster unexpectedly a season ago, and was on the roster through the entirety of the year, core special teams player. So this gives him an opportunity to go out and prove himself. And oh, by the way, Chris Blair, really interesting player. If you were just looking out at the players, Chris Blair stands out as like a physical specimen, right? He's just an interesting player. DeAndre Tompkins is another player who has made some plays. He just caught a deep ball from Jordan Love the other day. Reggie Begelton has been Jordan Love's favorite target in camp. So overall, these wide receivers, especially the ones I just mentioned, Blair, Tompkins, Begelton, have a ton of work to do. But hopefully Funchess, EQ, Winfrey can get back sooner than later. And in preseason games 2 and 3 really allow us to see this competition play out, because there's a million different ways that Green Bay could go with that wide receiver spot. Maybe they only keep 5, maybe they keep as many as 7. There's a lot of different options there, but a lot of wide receivers who have some talent and are going to have to, have their work cut out for them to make this team after a very talented group of 5 that are pretty much guaranteed to make the roster. So definitely another one I'm looking at. As you guys probably most of you know by now, there's always an undrafted free agent that I really start getting on board with, and I start getting a little bit probably unrealistically excited about. The players in the past, of course, Tim Boyle, Alex Light, Raven Green, those type of players. Robert Tonyan wasn't undrafted, but he was another guy that was in camp as kind of like a not undrafted guy, but kind of an unknown guy that I really liked when I saw him at his first training camp. Those are some of the guys that I really, really liked at camp. I always find one, and so far this year it's been Innis Gaines. So Innis Gaines is another player, not even necessarily so much from a defensive standpoint, but he's going to have to make his name on special teams if he wants to earn a spot. His nickname is Thump. That just seems and screams like somebody who would be good on special teams. So if he can be a special teams demon and maybe thump a couple guys across from him, it would certainly go a long way as well. But really like the upside of Gaines from what he can do from a coverage standpoint. He's intriguing to me, but he's going to have to show it on special teams. So that's the undrafted guy that I'm watching. Next up is special teams, right? I know it's not as exciting as watching Jordan Love in his first game, but watching special teams is your cheat sheet to seeing what, if you want to like predict your 53-man roster before things go out, like really watch who the gunners are on the punt team. Watch that opening kickoff to see the 10 guys that are lined up across from either Mason Crosby or JJ Molson, whoever makes that first kick. But watch to see who the quote unquote starters are on the special teams unit, and really watch if there's a guy that's on, maybe punt coverage, punt protect, kick coverage, kick return. Like if there's a guy that's on like almost every special teams unit, that is a tell. That is a tell that they are going to probably make the roster. So keep an eye out for that. It's not just the kick returner. It's not just the punt returner. It's the guys blocking for him. It's the guys that are trying to protect your punter. It's the guys that are trying to get down and cover the punt. Like all of those things matter. So keep an eye out for guys that are on multiple special teams units and who are the first, especially in the punt team, who are the gunners on the outside. Those guys usually have a leg up on making the roster. So as fun to watch as offense, defense, Jordan Love, Kylan Hill, maybe some of those sort of things, certainly not, but definitely important as Green Bay really tries to figure out those last spots on their 53-man roster. Next up is the edge rushers, and we kind of talked about this the other day, but you've got Rashawn Gary, you've got Preston Smith, you've got Zadarius Smith, and then it's a question mark. You've got Tipa Nalia, you've got Jonathan Garvin, Chauncey Rivers was just brought in, Delonte Scott was a player I liked last year in camp, hasn't flashed quite as much this year, but they're really hoping somebody can step up not only as a potential edge rusher, but again, a player who could really fill that role for Randy Ramsey on special teams, who is one of their best special teams players. So, Tipa Nalia makes sense as somebody who could be good on special teams. I don't know if he will be. It's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on, but he's got that sort of just Tasmanian devil sort of mentality. So we'll see what happens there. But somebody from that edge group needs to step up, or they're going to have to look outward, because right now, after that top three, they're looking for somebody who can play teams, and they're looking for somebody who can come in and maybe play a handful of snaps per game if you need that fourth guy. We'll see. Kamal Martin's got some time at outside linebacker as well, so maybe that's something that he could do a little bit, but you would love to see a Tipa or a Garvin really step up and start making some plays come preseason. The second to last one, the penultimate one, if you will, the punter battle, J.K. Scott versus Ryan Winslow. They haven't done almost any like live punting in camp at all, if they've even done any. I honestly don't remember, but if it has been, it hasn't been much. This punter battle will take place in the preseason. So Ryan Winslow, J.K. Scott, you would love to see some consistency finally from J.K. Scott. If he can't show that, like, it probably behooves the Packers to move to somebody else. Now, maybe that's not Ryan Winslow. I guarantee you they're going to be watching the punter battles throughout preseason to see if there's maybe somebody that gets cut. That would be an upgrade from either J.K. Scott or Ryan Winslow. I'm not convinced that the Packers week one punter is on the roster right now, but for both of these guys, it is a very huge preseason, and if one of them goes out and just crushes the heck out of the ball and has a great preseason, they're probably making the team. And then last but not least, number 10 on my list is Chris Barnes. Now, to be fair, I don't know how much Chris Barnes is going to play when you're a basically guaranteed starter. You never know quite how much, how many snaps they're going to get. But with Chris Barnes, he's one of the players that I've seen, in my opinion, who's made a step from last year to this year, who looks better from last year to this year. He looks faster. He looks quicker. I've seen him get sideline to sideline better. I've seen him read things better. I want to see if that translates to the actual game tape. Like, I want to see if we start seeing him really make an impact at inside linebacker, because listen, I'm not expecting Chris Barnes to be a Pro Bowler, right? That's not what Green Bay needs. If they get it, great. But if he can be consistent, solid at that inside linebacker spot, that was a weakness at times a season ago. If he can just be good, like just solid, average, good, consistent, whatever you want to call it, that to me can be an upgrade. And I think Chris Barnes has the ability to be that guy. As I've mentioned numerous times before, the Packers were better last season when Chris Barnes was on the field. So I'm excited to see if he can make that jump, and I'm hoping he gets some snaps in preseason and he can show that this isn't just a training camp thing, that he's going to be able to do it in games as well. That's going to do it for me today. I hope you enjoyed the first preseason game of the season. Lambeau Field, what could possibly be better? Jordan Love's first start as a Green Bay Packer, even though it's just preseason. Going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'll be right back here tomorrow to break it all down, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.